They'll know we are living by our love. Yes, they know we are living by our love.
Wow, I love that. And that goes so well with our topic. Reverend Maggie and I are so excited about this summer and our opportunity to share with you. And this title today is Spiritual Understanding of the Racial Divide. Now, in no uncertain terms, this time in our nation, we are looking at so much. There's the COVID global pandemic. There's the result of our response to the atrocious treatment of George Floyd and people awakening to where is the inequity? Where is the lack of oneness? And this draws us to our mission, because our mission, what we say we're about in doing, is acknowledging the divinity within. We welcome and empower all through fellowship, education, and service to our community and the world. So this is part of what we say we want to be. And how do we do it? And how we're going to do it is by doing it together, by acknowledging what it is, and then finding a way of, as Nelson Mandela said, it's in our hands,
Right.
and making the world a better place.
So to start our discussion and how we want to look at the inequality and bringing forth education, we thought we would start with what the actual definition is of racism. And it says in Webster, a belief or doctrine that inherent differences among the various human racial groups determine cultural or individual achievement, usually involving the idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to dominate others, or that a particular racial group is inferior to others. I mean, that's a lot of information in one small definition. But as Reverend Gary and I talked about how we were going to structure this week's talk, we thought it would be really helpful to bring this definition in for context so that it isn't an accusation. It isn't something that is intended to question one's morals. It is not labeling ourselves racist, but knowing how racism is defined contextually and technically in the dictionary. It helps us get through the next several weeks. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. And racism in and of itself is a social system. It's just these ways that human groups determine them socially, what to wear, what holidays to observe, what to eat. All this is part of the racial context in the system. So it's not a declaration of a mean, evil person, which is another definition of someone being cruel based on race. But this definition is the first definition, and it's valuable. Now, the way we're going to do this is a wonderful book by Robin DiAngelo. It's called White Fragility. It's so hard for white people to talk about racism. And it's a summer book study. So starting this week, there are some book studies you can join. You can go to the newsletter, the website, and you can join one of the book studies. This book is phenomenal.
Yes.
It's phenomenal for bringing wisdom to why is it so hard for us to talk about racism. For one thing, we have a picture, image of racism, and it's like, oh, well, I'm not racist. And yet, the way the context of the writing of the book is, if you're in society, race is a part of society. But it's what you do with it and how you observe it. And just because you believe in certain ways of being and I believe in certain ways of being, that diversity is welcome, except when there's oppression or using a system where one race believes it's better than another.
I have really enjoyed as far as I've gotten in the book, and I will confess to you all that it's not very far because I have had to reread, and I love how Robin DiAngelo just calls out some surface level platitudes that we all offer in especially the white race when we are being confronted with our race. And I had to stop. At first I was offended and I had to stop and reflect and then read a little more. And then stop and reflect and read a little more. But the reason we started with the definition that we did is because that's the context in which Robin is also writing. I mean, she addresses it in the first chapter that this isn't finger pointing and calling somebody out on their morals, but it is a natural occurrence. It is how we are biologically hardwired. So just breathe and take that in. You're not a racist. I'm not a racist because I believe that my white race makes me better than another race. But I am a human being that has a brain that's hardwired to take care of my tribe. And because we have senses, our eyes tell us who our tribe is first. And that looks like people like me. Gary looks like he's in my tribe. Look at us. Pale skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, tribe. The trick in the spirituality, the journey in aligning this book with unity principles and with our mission is to remember that we are so much more than our hard wiring. We are all one. We believe that, we know it, it's true. So we have to override this tiny little place in our brain, the amygdala, our downstairs brain that says, you good, you not so good. You love, you threat. And apply principles, which we've talked about a lot lately, the difficulty in actually living it. So this book is being our guide for the next 7 weeks to take it in and take us through the examination of the discomfort of racism and how to bring that into our spiritual lives as unitics.
It's very true. Now, I encourage you to, of course, we're going to be talking about it over the next 7 weeks, but get the book. It's valuable. It's a wonderful exploration. It really isn't hard to read. It's very well written. Or join one of the book studies and chew on these ideas. And this is part of the way of awareness. And I have to admit, I'm going to just put it out there. When we first talked about it, what came up for me is, boy, I sure wish I could change the title. It'd be so much nicer if we could just whitewash it a little bit, because it made me a little uncomfortable. But as I've been reading it, I'm reading that uncomfortability is valuable for me to discern and learn stuff that I had no possibility of having that perspective, even from my life experience. And this is where we're headed.
So And on the very back of the page, or back cover of the book, is this quote shared by Michael Eric Dyson, who is a professor, an author, and a preacher. And he says that this is a vital, necessary, and beautiful book, that a bracing call for white folks everywhere to see their whiteness for what it is and seize the opportunity to make things better now. So we are at that precipice. I mean, I love eventually being far enough down the line to look back and go, oh, that's why we've been talking about the things we've been talking about, tapped into the frequency of the universe, of spirit, laying the groundwork in this community, and I'm certain in many, many communities across the globe. But it was all for the preparedness for us to be awake, alive, alert, and enthusiastically ready to embrace our culture. There are many subcultures, there is races, and there is time to be awake and be ready to evolve and push consciousness to a new level of healing and understanding and acceptance. What Michael Dyson is saying here is that white people first need to start by claiming their race. So if you are watching and you are a Caucasian individual, I am going to bet you that you didn't wake up this morning and think, gee, I'm a white person. I didn't, and never do I, until I'm confronted with the conversation of race. And then I immediately throw out all the cards of why I'm different, why I'm separate from, why I know better and know more, and how I was raised, and da 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 da. And Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility, says you're going to do that. And then look at how those experiences and those differences influenced your whiteness, your race, the way you show up and choose to interact and foster healing at this time.
It really is a call, and there's no mistake that we're right here in the month of July in our faculty of understanding. Mm-hmm. Because when we call upon that spiritual understanding, that's why we called it spiritual understanding of the racial divide. Right. It's understanding and values. And this is also very poignant. Our fifth unity principle is our needing to be it, mm-hmm. to do it, to take action, and finding where there's a need and doing it. Not just sitting back and just watching it all happen. We are in unity taking action to do our mission, mm-hmm. which is empowering all people in our community and the world. That's a huge mission. And we can only be doing it one step at a time, and what we can do together is so much more than what we can do apart.
Absolutely.
Robin DiAngelo says the primary goal for white people working to understand racism is not to learn how racism impacts people of color. The primary goal is to recognize how the system of racism shapes our lives, how we uphold the system, and how we might interrupt it. Mm-hmm. This is valuable because when we begin to look at the big picture, we can see that in our cultural, national view, white people are in privilege, always in benefit, without even naming it. And all other minority races are not with the same playing field, not in the same education, not in the same opportunities. And as we begin to recognize that all of us are one, because we profess every week that we believe we are one. Well, if we are one, shouldn't we all be equal? Shouldn't we all come to this oneness in equality? If there is inequality, there's separation. And if there's separation, there's not oneness. And it really is a very powerful conversation.
It is. So last week we talked about the Sabbath and holding your horses. And we did that by design because we know that this summer series is going to be what disrupts the system. Again, I invite you, as Robin does in the book, to just breathe when I say that there is uncomfortable truths that we're doing it with you, looking at and accepting and integrating or rejecting. And by rejecting, I mean healing it. And that's the first step for me, for us, I think, in disrupting that system is at least owning it. There is no point in me telling you that I am not white. There is no point in me discounting a person of color's experience by trying to trump them with all of the experiences I've had that make me different. I was raised differently. I was in a different community. I was the only white kid in an all-black school when I was in high school, and I was raised on the border, and like those just fall away, really. The invitation is to just let that go and to embrace our oneness through the recognition and the acceptance that though we are one, we are not the same on the outside. Therefore, our experiences could not possibly begin to be the same. They influence, they instruct, they inform, but they are not the same. And by first and foremost understanding that, we open the door to conversation. We open the door to acceptance. We open the door to understanding when we can just be humble and kind and aware. So that's the invitation from us to you and from the author of this book to all of the readers who are brave enough and ready to take this journey with her.
So this is our where we are today, and it's an invitation. It's looking at a spiritual launch, bringing a spiritual attitude to a social issue. And we're not going to resolve everything. What we can do is look at our own journey and allowing that to be a place of exploration, of curiosity, and of wonder. And Linda Gillespie let me know about this beautiful prayer that's going to lead us into our meditation now. And what I'd like to do is to say this prayer, so be at a place of just hearing these words. O God, make me discontented with the things the way they are in the world and my own life. Make me notice the stains when people get spilled on. Make me care about the slum child downtown, the misfit at work, the forgotten people in our hospitals and nursing homes, the men, women, and youth behind bars. Jar my complacency, expose my excuses, get me involved in the life of my city and the world. Give me integrity once more, O God, as we seek to be changed and transformed with a new understanding and awareness for our common humanity. And therein lies our journey together as we go into meditation.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti.
As we allow the Shanti, the peace, we allow us to breathe easy, to know that in this moment we are in the right place, at the right time, right now. In that breath, let's turn to our center and breathe into our heart space. And therein connect with the divine, our Christ consciousness, our spiritual understanding. We may recall that the spiritual understanding is the front of the brain. So let the light, the golden light of spiritual understanding illuminate our minds. And let that light filter down through our head and our shoulders into our heart space and our lungs, down through our bodies, out our arms and fingertips, down our legs and out our toes, so that our whole body is filled with the golden light of understanding. This is the light in which we can perceive, have enlightenment and insight. So with understanding turned on and us in communion with divine grace, let's take a moment now in the silence. Wonderful when we take time to listen. Silence is golden, and therein lies our understanding. So as we go through our day, this time, our week, we bring moments of stopping and discerning our understanding. The presence is always available to us, and for this, we're truly grateful. So now bring your attention back to wherever you are. You might wiggle your fingers or wiggle your toes, roll your head, and bring with you whatever you discern from this time and allow it to be your guide. And when you're ready, we'll open our eyes and we'll say this affirmation that goes with today's talk. Together.
I am blessed with infinite wisdom and spiritual understanding.
And so it is.
Step out on the water, release your faith. Every step is stronger. Step out on the water.